I got a MiG-19 and a few other guys chasing me. They seem to really want me dead. I don't know, I guess it must have been something I said. Specifically this thing I had just said. As it turns out, that's a great way to get a horde of enemy players to start chasing you. I assume they want to teach me a lesson or something, I don't know. Hello, I'm Ayoyalaipe, and I like to hop into top-tier air arcade matches and then personally kill the entire enemy team by myself. So I'm going to make a series of guides teaching you how to play War Thunder's most difficult and chaotic game mode. One of the highlights of being the foremost, by default but still, top-tier air arcade YouTuber is all the lovely comments I get from realistic players who are upset that I exist and have way more fun than they do. So many people have a burning hatred for TTAA, and that's because, well, every time they try to dogfight someone, some dipshit will steal their kill, and then they themselves will get killed by a half-dozen missile-spamming dickweeds that materialized out of nowhere. It's really frustrating if you don't know how to deal with it or understand why it's happening to you, which most players don't. So I'm going to explain how to avoid having that happen to you while I dogfight and kill a ridiculous number of people. Now, my F8 here can outturn anything it can't outrun, and outrun anything it can't outturn. So it can pull every trick against someone and some trick against everyone. And this particular map is designed for ground pounders. It's a ground pounder's paradise. And that means people will bring all sorts of planes out, including props. So this plane with this map, you get to see a bit of everything. This match is at a low enough BR that I'll mostly be dealing with guns and short-range missiles, and that means everything will stay contained enough that I can show all the fundamentals on camera and have them be very understandable. In my next video, I'll build on this and show you how to rampage through a massive rank 8 dogfight with a MiG-23 MLD. You know, let's be honest, if I started off by trying to explain how to fly through something like this without getting shot down, I'd probably lose some people if I didn't lay some groundwork first, right? But this will be in my next guide, unless I find a more interesting game in the meantime. So what throws most people off about TTAA dogfighting is the positioning. Positioning is everything. Until they learn better, most War Thunder players, regardless of game mode, will instinctively attack the closest or easiest looking target and focus on 1v1ing them, while treating anyone deciding to attack them in turn as just random bad luck. If you take that mindset into top tier realistic or low tier anything, then it is suboptimal, yes, but you can still do okay. You can play at a basic or possibly even a decent level without doing it in those game modes. In TTAA, however, you think ahead or you get Seal Club. Planes move fast, climb fast, turn slow, have terrible energy tension, and basically have near infinite long-range missiles, all on relatively small maps with respawns enabled. So if you make yourself slow, distracted, or otherwise vulnerable anywhere near enemy players, you might as well be throwing a french fry in front of a flock of seagulls. You're going to be destroyed so hard, so fast by so many players that it will make your head spin. Thus, becoming an expert in positioning is absolutely non-negotiable if you want to be decent at top-tier air arcade. For my first example, I'm going to dive on this KI-84, which might seem like a free kill, but that F-86, P-47, and I-185, all worse planes than mine, are all converging on his position. I need to turn to kill that KI-84, but if I did that, I would provide everyone else with a window to attack me. So I instead outrun their turns and use my speed to go find a new target. I could have killed that KI-84, but not without getting myself murdered by all those seagulls, and a KI-84 is not worth my F8. You should use every ounce of willpower you have to avoid getting fixated on a single target. Also remember, almost all prop planes will outturn almost all jets, and the ones that don't have tail gunners. So if you try to turn and burn a prop plane with a jet, you generally lose, and people will bring them into matches hoping you do that so they can get God mode. As you can see here, I miss a very easy shot at an SPD-3. Oh well. But I'm going to zoom past him rather than immediately turning around to attack him again. Before making my next move, I'm going to look behind and to my side to see if anyone would be in a position to attack me if I went after him. And then I open my map to make sure I didn't miss any enemies that might be coming from an unusual direction. In the meantime, the SPD-3 has turned and I can now hit him from the side again. And there's no one that can save him or interfere. So those are very simple examples of what you should be trying to think about and look for when you initiate a dogfight. Now, as we see here, I see a whole lot of enemies coming at me, and some of them have pretty good planes. So I'm going to think ahead and climb to get above them. This buys me a block of airspace where there are relatively few enemy players. That gives me enough breathing room to turn fight this MiG-21 who comes after me, although my teammate winds up getting the kill. Oh well. There are plenty of opportunities to kill people in TTAA, but the tricky part is not getting shot down yourself. However, planning ahead, paying attention, being aware, and cutting past people in a way that doesn't give them an easy shot doesn't really come across on video very well. To the people who think TTAA is all about random chance, it looks like I'm just spamming missiles and not getting hit myself because of dumb luck. In other words, skill is often invisible to those who have none. You know, when someone writes something like this, it's just a dead giveaway they have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. But unfortunately, people saying stuff like that is where most players get their information about top tier Air Arcade, and many players stay away as a result, even though winding your way through the sheer chaos of top tier Air Arcade is just about the most difficult and rewarding thing you can learn to do in this game. Now, I do actually die right here. I gunned down this F4D and tried to slip under it to take down the F86-39D, but the wreckage pulled up in a way I didn't expect. I flew into it. Oh well, the solution is to just try not to fly into things. Thankfully, I have two F8 Crusaders, a plane whose name harkens back to a time in the distant past, when a huge chunk of the world was really upset about an endless series of wars in the Holy Land. Now, this isn't an F8 review, so I won't go too much into the difference between the two variants. I will someday, but for the purposes of this video, you can assume that they are essentially identical. So far, I've only shown you dogfights when I initiate them, but when your opponent initiates them, it's a whole other story. The faster you realize someone is coming after you, the more options you have. And the options you want to keep open are where on the map the dogfight occurs. Even if you're being chased down by a faster opponent, it still takes time for them to actually chase you down. The faster you're going before that happens, the longer it takes to chase you down, and thus the more options you have about where the dogfight happens. Also, side note, that A4 managed to ding my plane from a pretty significant range. That's because he has a high velocity cannon. Keep that in mind for later, something interesting happens. However, because I noticed these attackers far enough in advance, I was able to turn soon enough and stay fast enough that they could only just barely get me within range. That means I didn't have to use much energy to dodge their attacks. If I had been just a little bit slower or turned just a little bit later, they could have energy trapped me even though they were slower than me, and then they could have killed me. Instead, they eventually give up the chase. And now that they turned back, this MiG-17 over here is totally isolated, which makes it very easy for me to just turn and burn him. Now, I should mention there are 5 locations that can give you a decisive advantage in a dogfight, and here's a list. And again, this is when someone is trying to chase you down and they're initiating the fight. If you can outturn them and don't want to be interfered with, lead them here. In a pinch, you can also dip behind the enemy spawn. It's kind of wild how most War Thunder players won't notice a dogfight happening right behind them. However, if you can't outturn your opponents, or you're facing multiple opponents, or it just happens to be the closest option, as in the case of this F9F that's attacking me, you'll want to lead your opponents over your own airfield so the AAA either kills them or forces them to turn so they avoid it. Once they turn, you can either pounce or escape depending on how maneuverable your plane is, or what kind of weapons you have. I would have pounced on that F9F, but my teammate got him, so I go ahead and land. Might as well pick up extra fuel and repairs while I'm over here. The F8 is pretty unique in that it gets an air respawn after it's repaired, and I had an expert crew with max repair speed and rank, so it was a very short pit stop. As for options 2 and 3 on this list, this is where you set your pursuers up to be killed by your own teammates. If you bring the French fry to the seagulls will attack and destroy that French fry. This is War Thunder, everyone is greedy for kills, flip that to your advantage. So if you set your pursuer up to be a very easy kill for your own teammates, then your pursuer will either need to break off or die. Either way, you escape. As for this Spitfire, the supersonic cone appears right as I'm getting ready to head on him. I have to guess when he fires his guns, and I guess wrong. He fires a bit sooner than I assumed, but I escaped serious damage. For my next opponent, I have another MiG-21. Now, if you have a fast plane with terrible turning or energy retention, like the F-104 or MiG-21, you almost never want to turn and burn someone, like this guy is doing. Your plane is built for booming and zooming, hit-and-run style attacks. You always want to initiate the fight and always go for an instant knockout. The correct way to get people off your tail is to use your speed to lead them on a wild high-speed goose chase across the map, until you can set them up to be killed by someone or something else. I will admit this was a pretty weak enemy team, so when my teammate complained about not getting enough kills, I decided to tell him in chat that he may have the enemy team when Aoyolai Pei is done with it. This KI-200 tries to give me some instant karma, but he has a low velocity cannon with a limited ammo supply. What happens next should look very familiar to anyone who's seen my cheat codes episode on bullets. My first cheat codes episode, in fact, was basically the pilot. That KI-200 runs out of ammo and is so focused on killing me that he doesn't notice he has become a French fry, and well, my teammate wanted to kill, boom, there's your kill. I tell my teammate that he is my gift to you because I ran him out of ammo. Just to be clear, that guy was a total stranger who was just randomly squatted with me. I became friends with him after the match though. chill guy. Oh, and I've had some people mention that they're having a hard time remembering how to find my channel because spelling Aoyalaipe is really hard. There's a simple workaround to this. You just need to subscribe and ring the bell button, and then you don't have to remember my name anymore. As for pronunciation, Aoyalaipe is just 6 easy syllables that rolls off the tongue like butter. There's a bit of a furball developing here, so I'm gonna circle around and attack it. Oh, and you can launch infrared missiles as soon as they're locked on, assuming they're inside the envelope, of course. If they're outside the envelope, you can still launch, they'll just miss. One of the funniest things about Arcade is that, especially at ranks 6 and 7, people will drag out prop planes, especially towards the end of the match once they start running out of jets. So if you survived long enough with your good planes, because, you know, you followed my advice, then you can just farm them for kills. Again, the key thing to remember is that prop planes do actually have advantages. They turn super well, they have great energy retention, and it's hard for IR missiles to lock onto them. Like, IR missiles can lock onto them, but really only from about a kilometer away. So if you're in a jet, make sure you stick to using your speed to boomins in them and outrun their turns, and they'll never get a window to fire at you. People really need to resist the urge to turn fight everything they see. There are advantages a plane can have other than simple turning radius. Arcade players will learn this or wash out by rank 7 or 8, because screwing that up is just so incredibly punishing that you can't continue if you don't know how to do it right. I do actually play some top tier realistic, and I'm amazed how it's just full of people who turn fight when they shouldn't. I'm also amazed how often people recognize me in realistic. Like, it's just weird to be recognized while killing 4 people with an A10 in a realistic match. I mean, because it's just really off brand for me, and if you're wondering how I did that, well, as I said, people turn fight when they shouldn't. Plus, having aim 9Ls always helps. Anyways, back to this game. I got a MiG-19 and a few other guys chasing me. They seem to really want me dead. I don't know. I guess it must have been something I said. Specifically this thing I had just said. As it turns out, that's a great way to get a horde of enemy players to start chasing you. I assume they want to teach me a lesson or something. I don't know. Even though that MiG-19 will, in theory, eventually chase me down, I've kept my speed up enough in advance of them attacking me that I have enough time to reach my airfield before any of these enemy players can prove that karma is real and actually manage to kill me. I'm also headed towards a bunch of friendly players, so I'm happy to give all these people the dogfight they want. I just want to have it surrounded by my teammates and AAA. Demanding a fair fight is something noobs do, because they don't know how to rig them. I mean, we had the same opportunity to rig the fight. That's a skill issue. As you can see, most of my pursuers have broken off. The last guy remaining was the MiG-19, and he turned back because he was nearing my airfield's AAA, and because a teammate decided to swoop in on him. So rather than leading the charge of a half dozen teammates, he is now a french fry sitting in front of a flock of seagulls. Man, I really do shoot like an arcade player sometimes, huh? Alright, so my last kills are coming up. I see this group of enemies coming, so I'm going to turn and head off to a deserted corner of the map. This should either split the group of enemies and let me pick off stragglers, or if none of them split off, it will allow me to circle around and flank them. It's up to them if they want to attack me or not, but I'll keep my options open either way. They sort of decide to attack me, which really means they made a bunch of unnecessary turns while trying to decide if they wanted to or not. That makes them really slow, so I wind up nailing 2 of them, and then I go land for gas because I'm really low on that by now. And the game ultimately ends while I'm sitting on the runway refueling. The F8 is one of my favorite planes, and I really need to show it some more love on this channel. It's actually my 2nd and 3rd most played planes. And I was like, wait, what? When I realized that like a few weeks ago I'd never featured it on this channel before. So I figured I should at least pull one of my nuttier games out of the vault for the dogfighting guide. And if you're wondering why people dragged out so many prop planes to hit ground targets on that map, just look at the scoreboard. And here's a link to a few of my other videos, as well as a playlist of my other cheat codes episodes. This is the longest one, the rest are shorter. If you want TTAA guides, I hope you like those. There aren't really any others, so if you don't like them, I guess that just kind of sucks for you. Oh, and in other news, a guy named Roach God now has the highest proven jet kill streak in War Thunder, and somehow still lost the match. I have a link to his video of that in the description. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't need to remember how to spell Aoyalaipe.